Welcome back. I'm with Sam Bazuki, the CEO of Matador Mining. Sam, good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Peter.
Obviously, just to kick things off, actually, why don't you give us a brief overview of the company, and then we'll dive into the rest.
Yeah, no, sounds good, and I appreciate the opportunity for an interview here. Matador Mining is an ASX listed company. Been Australian incorporated for a number of years now, but the asset's actually in Newfoundland, Canada. We've got one of the largest land packages in Newfoundland, with 120 kilometers of continuous strike on the same structure that hosts Marathon Gold's 5.1 million ounces. In addition to the extensive land package on what's called the Cape Ray Valentine Lake Shear, we've got another 27 kilometers of continuous strike on the Hermitage Flexure, which is the second largest gold structure in Newfoundland. It's the same structure that hosts Newfound Gold, and it's very similar to some of the things you might see in Eastern Australia.
Perfect. Okay. Well, obviously you've been at the company just over a year now. Quite a few important milestones have happened since you've been in there. Obviously, B2 being a huge one. Before we go into, I guess, your tenure so far and the way that you're looking at this company and the priorities, I wouldn't mind just a bit of background on you. I'm not sure if, obviously, it's still only been a year. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with you and the new direction yet. So maybe we could talk a little bit about your work history, your background. Sure. And why you decided to take this role at Matador.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been almost, not quite a year and a half, but it's almost about a year and a half. Joined in May 2022. Prior to joining Matador, I was with OceanaGold, which at the time was a dual listed issuer, Australian company with an ASX TSX listing, producer with 4 operating mines. I worked in corporate development, investor relations with OceanaGold. I was there for a decade. When I arrived, it was a $500 million market cap company. I think today it's about $3 to $4 billion. So I was there really in the ground up, was part of the big growth in the company, both organic but also through M&A. We did some transformational transactions when gold hit its lowest point in 2015. We were cashed up. We had the support of shareholders, and we took advantage of a situation where there was a number of opportunities out there that majors just weren't looking at. It was a great ride at Oceana, and I really enjoyed my time there. Developed a very strong relationship with global investors, both institutional and on the retail side. Oceana still to this date has one of the best shareholder registers in the mining industry, and it's a tremendous company. For me to leave that, it had to be for something that was something that would entice me, something that would allow my skill set to help grow. I had opportunities to go into other companies, but what really drew me to Matador was a few different things. First and foremost, working in corporate development with Oceana, one of the things we looked at is going into areas where there was very little competition. So looking at districts and looking for new districts. 2015 we acquired Remarco, which is the Hale gold mine in South Carolina. There were no other major players in the Carolinas. There's a ton of gold there. And so we looked at that as a district. So that fit within what we were looking for strategically. So looking at the opportunity with Matador, I asked myself the question, is this something a mid-tier would want to own? That was the fundamental question in my head. Is this something that could be a district one day? You got Marathon up there with their 5 million ounces. Newfoundland, even though it's in Canada, is relatively unknown. Yep. Even within Canada, it's relatively unknown. And certainly in the global sense, it's not really recognized as a major mining jurisdiction, when it actually is. It's been rich in iron ore and nickel, but that's mainly out of Labrador. Yep. Gold in Newfoundland is relatively new. And here's Matador, an ASX company which nobody in North America really knew about, with 120 kilometers of continuous strike on the same structure that hosts Marathon Gold's 5 million ounces. So right away, I still thought to myself, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. This could be a district. I looked at the quality of the board. I'd say it's one of the best, for a company of our size, it's one of the best boards that's out there, with some incredible brain power, incredible experience from people who've made discoveries. Big discoveries in their 30-plus year careers, people who have invested in companies that have made discoveries. So Justin Osborne is ex-Gold Road. Nicky Atchett-Bell is involved in so many different companies, has been on the buy side, on the sell side. And Kerry Sparks, he worked with Franco-Nevada, He's involved in anything Pierre Lassonde really touches and invests in, and he himself has made numerous discoveries in his acclaimed career. So there was a number of different reasons that compelled me to come over to Matador and to leave the friendly confines, I guess, of being a gold producing company with revenue to go into junior exploration.
Yeah, it's a much tougher space, I guess, isn't it, than when you've obviously got cash flow. But I guess since you've been here, what has been the main priority for you, and I guess what's happened over the last year since you've been in charge?
It's been busy.
Yeah.
There's been a lot. There's been a lot of change, and there's been a lot that we've been working on and focused on. The market is a market, and we've got to sort of navigate through, headwinds, tailwinds, and be ready depending on what's happening externally. But you have to also make sure that you get your house in order and get the ship in order. So when I joined, even prior to joining, I kind of, doing a deeper dive into the opportunity and looking at what they've been doing, what they could be doing, looking at these sorts of things to see what we should be doing. I noticed the history around where we have a resource around the Cape Ray is one that actually dates back to the 1970s.
Yeah.
So the very first gold showing in Newfoundland was actually on our property in the Cape Ray corridor. And I believe Matador, I think, is the 5th company that's gone there since the first gold showing. And the recipe's always been the same. I mean, the playbook has always been the same. There's gold, and so you've got a little bit of cash. You go in there to drill, knowing you're going to get a result, and then you're going to take that result, go back to the market, get more capital, and just keep drilling it until you basically run out of capital.
Yeah.
And so every company if you look at the history, has done that. They haven't actually explored broadly on the big belt that's there.
Yeah, just to clarify as well, because obviously this is the 500,000 ounce of gold deposit that
600,000
ounces.
That's right.
Because that, like you were saying, has been grown incrementally, but that was always the main focus, right? So it might actually just be worth touching on, obviously, what was already there once you joined, because you had this, I guess, deposit that showed promise, but wasn't always your main focus, was it?
No, absolutely. I mean, the resource was there. There's only 4 companies in Newfoundland that actually have a gold resource. Coincidentally, the one with the largest market cap doesn't have a resource.
Yeah.
But Marathon has the biggest resource and is the most advanced project in the island. Matador, again, on the same structure, we have 610,000 ounces of gold. And the strategy that I came into, the one that basically was something that I inherited, was one in which you go through the permitting process and then you look to build a starter mine. We've pushed pause on that because, again, looking at the history of what's happened in the Cape Ray, looking at what Matador has done specifically, what I looked at is a lot of data, a lot of drilling, a lot of sort of just drill for the sake of drilling to support an EIS, to support a permit application, to support a starter mine. But there wasn't enough analysis done on that data. And from my perspective, it looked like anything we would do is incremental growth.
Yep.
And I wasn't coming over from Oceania to Matador for incremental growth. The opportunity here is to find big deposits. Basically look to replicate what Marathon has and really move the dial for shareholders. That's what's going to drive value. Yeah. So that was a big motivation for me to come in, recommend to the board that we change strategy and be one of the first ones to actually go outside of the friendly confines of the resource corridor and start exploring in the greenfields perspective. It's scary. It's scary to do that because we've got a massive land package and you think about how much information you have in those areas and how successful you're going to be. But that strategy actually proved to be a sound one for us, especially since right at the time that I joined, the markets really started heading south. The company needed financing. Share price was going in the wrong direction. But we managed to get them financing through in that environment. And as part of that financing, we added 2 large Toronto-based resource funds who understand the world of exploration, who are really drawn by that change in strategy to go greenfields. Then just after that, you'd mentioned B2Gold coming in as a strategic investor. That was a main driver for them. They saw the opportunity that existed within our portfolio, the entire portfolio, but where we were focused on at the time, which was malachite, it's got all the ingredients you'd be looking for when you're looking for big deposits. And that's what drew B2 into Matador. So that change in strategy was absolutely effective. We've done some work. We've got more information. Are we closer to actually making a big discovery? We're not. We've got a ton of smoke in Newfoundland on our property, but we still haven't figured out where the source of the fire is.
What's interesting though is obviously with this new strategy, it's attracted new resource funds. You've got B2Gold that's just come in back in November. Love the prospectivity of areas like Malachite. And it seems a lot of excitement in terms of the prospectivity of obviously this 120 kilometre belt that you have. How's the exploration model looking at the moment? How are you going about systematically trying to find these deposits and actually find something of scale?
Yeah, I mean, another reason why I was attracted to Matador, I wasn't interested to go into junior exploration to work for a company that was really focused on promoting and only promoting without actually having substance behind it. I'm an engineer background, and at Oceana we looked at so many different projects and we saw what was good and what worked, what didn't, and then the reasons why things worked or why they didn't. For me, again, I wasn't going to come here just to over-promote something and then make a quick buck and disappear. My credibility in this industry means a lot more to me than the job that I have. And that's how I have such a strong relationship with institutional and retail investors globally. So one of the things to enable that sort of growth and that discovery is to do things the right way. You know, not promote. You're going to promote results. Results is what's going to drive the value of the business, but you got to get there. And the only way to get there is to do things in the right way. And what I saw with Matador was that they took the aspects of how you explore in Australia, which is different to how you explore in Canada, and they married it with techniques used in Canada to come up with this hybrid approach, a systematic approach to exploration. So we really are taking an approach. We like to do more of the right things instead of just go blindly drill. So we'll do our prospecting to look for key areas that we should sort of focus on and come follow up with doing additional work around soil sampling and geochemistry studies. And then a key sort of enabler for us, and I think a key enabler for the province or for the island, is bottom of hole base of till sampling. We're the only ones in Newfoundland who've done it. Prior to me joining, we used the specialized tool, which was an ATV, and there was an auger mounted in the back of it. They called it the wiki drill. It worked okay, but the productivity rates weren't that great. But the concept to use this was novel in Newfoundland. So now we're looking at a different machine to come in and do our bottom of hole, our basal till sampling. Again, no one does that in Newfoundland. And one of the reasons why there hasn't been more big discoveries is because there's a lot of cover in Newfoundland. In Western Australia, there's a lot of cover. So they use air core drilling, RAB drilling to sample through that cover to make these discoveries. But for whatever reason in Canada, it's not a widely used practice. And in some ways, Rupert Resources, that's another company that we like to sort of do things similarly to what they do. I mean, their big discovery in Ikri came as a result of bottom hole sampling.
Yeah, base of till. It's one of the. I quite like it personally because it's a lot less costly to obviously just drill to the base. If there is an anomaly, spend more, and it's rather than sort of putting in these big 200, 300, 400 meter drill holes blindly and sort of wasting cash.
That's right.
So I think in that sense, it's definitely the right approach, especially when you have till cover. Moving forward, I guess what are the main priorities for you at the moment? Because you've been doing some drilling already this year, and I guess what are the main focus areas? You've got such a, like you were saying earlier, you've got such a large area of land that you need to cover. What are you telling the geos to focus on? What do you need to hone in on at the moment?
You know, it is a double-edged sword to have the land package that we have. It's great that you have it. It increases your chances of making big discoveries. But at the same time, you know, we're a small team. Capital's not infinite. So we need to be focused and we need to be selective on what we do. So there is a lot of ground to cover, and we have to make sure that, again, we're doing things the right way, and we're doing it in taking a systematic approach. So we can't do it all, and we got to sort of look strategically, how do we address that problem, right? Through the work, I guess since the last year and a half, we've done, again, the prospecting and geochemistry and drilling and done all that. And there's more to do, and it's basically told us that our land is very prospective. And again, there's a lot of smoke, but we still haven't figured out where that source of smoke is coming from. So through the program this summer, and sort of getting, again, better handle of what we have and where we are as a company, the approach that we're looking to take now is, again, remind ourselves that it's all about a return on invested capital. The drilling we do in greenfields is expensive, and we're looking to drill, a drill hole in an area that's 15 kilometers by 4 kilometers, and that's just one project, Malachite, is you need a bit of luck to actually tag into something. And some people historically have been lucky. They've drilled, they tag into it, and they're off to the races.
Yep.
But I don't like to just hope. Like you always have to hope, but I don't want to bet the company on hope. So I'd mentioned we've got all this data in the brownfields corridor, and I've tasked the geologist to actually analyze that data. So we've gone through a lot of that analysis through the updated resource work that we did. We've brought experts, specialized structural geologists to come have a look at what we do, or what we have, to opine on what it is and come up with recommendations. B2 has spent combined almost a month on site recently with literally their top geologists to look at what we're doing, what we should be doing, and come up with their recommendations. So we've had a lot of brain power this summer, along with all the data to support the work that we've been doing and invested in. And we've discovered that there's a number of different targets within the resource corridor that was never ever thought of as being a target. And I would characterize that as being more advanced than anything we have from a greenfields perspective. So the likelihood of success is going to be higher if we go back with the diamond drill rigs within that resource corridor than going greenfields.
Yep.
So what we'd like to do is diamond drill on advanced targets. That could be brownfields or greenfields. Right now it's brownfields. And then go through that approach, systematic approach that I'd mentioned with our bottom hole sampling, basal till sampling, do our geophysics, geochemistry to work up that pipeline and really build a robust pipeline that basically you drill these things get advanced along, then we follow up with diamond drilling on those targets.
Obviously, you've touched on B2 quite a bit there, and obviously they've had a lot of time on site. What are they most excited about? What are they focusing on, and why did they make the initial investment?
Yeah, I mean, B2, world-class global gold mining company, strong track record of exploration, development, and production. Relationship started in June 2021 at the Toronto PDAC, where they looked at what we have in terms of a land package. In the words of the SVP of exploration, the most senior exploration person at B2, Victor King, there were 4 things they liked about Matador: the geology, the geography, our approach to exploration, and the team on the ground. So this really underpinned the reasons for their investment, and they came in with a strategic investment. They've been, I'd consider it fairly hands-on. They've got a big team in Vancouver. They've been involved in kind of what we're looking to do strategically, and they've offered recommendations. They've made numerous site visits, and they love what we have. They love the package of rocks. They love the opportunity, and it's a fantastic partnership. It's a great relationship that we have with them.
And this was their first ever private placement into a Canadian company as well, right? They usually used to do deals on project levels, but this, for some reason, they've looked at you and agreed to do a different style of approach. Yeah,
B2's MO previously was they like a project, they do a joint venture.
Yep.
So their strategic investment in us was at the corporate level. And that was the first time in their history, as you said, that they've done a strategic investment. So they moved away from their strategy of doing joint ventures for us. Then their investment in us was actually the first time in their history. It also dates back to their BEMA days, where they invested in a project in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a number of firsts, and that really paved the way for them to do more things in Canada. They bought Sabina, which has brought Back River project to their portfolio. So again, this is a world-class team, and we're very happy to have them as our largest shareholder.
No, it's good, and it's one thing that I guess is being rewarded is discovery, right? And I think you're probably in one of the best jurisdictions to find new discoveries. Just talk me through, just to finish things off, just talk me through the next 12 months, what corporately and obviously on the ground, what could we be looking out for?
Yeah, so from a corporate perspective, I've talked about us being an ASX company, an Australian company. And you think about Australia and you think about Newfoundland. I mean, I don't think there's a further place away from Newfoundland than
true.
Australia. Newfoundland is a jurisdiction well understood by Canadians. I know through discussions I've had with my network of buy side and sell side, this is a story that fits perfectly within what they're interested in. Again, we've got a very strong institutional shareholder base already, and there's a bunch of new ones that have expressed an interest to be involved in this. Part of it is to get a Toronto Stock Exchange listing, so that's very much on the radar for us, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think that's something we're going to have to park for now and look to do next year. It hasn't been as straightforward as I would have hoped, as I would have liked, I would have expected.
Yep.
But the ASX is a great stock exchange, and mining runs through the veins of Australians. It's ingrained in their DNAs, and we've got a number of very strong, very supportive shareholders in Australia. The institutions I mentioned could actually own global stock, so that expression of interest can be converted to ASX, to an ASX holding. But it's been a challenging market. Liquidities have dried up across the world.
Yep.
But again, we got to do what we believe we need to do to make discoveries and move the business forward. And then from the business perspective, in terms of exploration, again, we're looking at we're going to go through this new targeting exercise, given the amount of analysis we've done and the ideas we have. What I'd like to do is do exploration work almost all year round. There's certain months you don't do any exploration work, so we'll avoid those months. But I'd like to get into a position where we're doing exploration work in the wintertime.
Good.
Like not just the summer, go quiet, and then wait for the winter to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
It's to be there doing work, meaningful work all year round.
Perfect. Sam, thank you for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Peter. All the best.